Hi, if you want to support the channel, you can do so on Patreon. It's $1 a month and there are exclusive videos on there. Thank you, bye. This case takes place in Sydney, Australia, in the year 2011. On the 30th of July 2011, a man named Josh Rathmell was walking through Hyde Park in central Sydney. He looked up at one of the many tall buildings that surrounded the park. There, he saw a man throwing what he believed to be a suitcase off a balcony of an apartment building. However, a crowd of people began to gather below. Josh would later discover that a woman named Lisa Cecilia Harnum had fallen from that very same apartment building. This left Josh realizing that he had just witnessed a murder. Lisa Cecilia Harnum was a 30-year-old Canadian woman who lived in Sydney. She was born and raised in Toronto, Canada. She was raised by her mother, whom she got along incredibly well with. She also had a sibling, a brother named Jason. She was described by those who knew her as extroverted and happy. Growing up, Lisa found a passion for dance, and in particular, ballet. During her teenage years, she pursued this further, but this resulted in some mental health struggles. Ballet is infamous for causing some issues with self-perception. At some point in her teens, she became incredibly body-conscious, which resulted in an eating disorder. Her family became worried. She was eventually diagnosed, but her condition worsened, and she nearly died. Tragically, this would be something that Lisa struggled with on and off for the rest of her life. In 2004, when Lisa was around 23, she made the decision to leave her home country to travel, and she decided that she wanted to live in Australia. She applied for a working visa, bought a flight, and made her way to the land down under. First, she settled in the city of Melbourne, but later moved to Sydney. In Sydney, she took up a hairdressing course in Bondi, working part-time so she could fund her course and accommodation. Things were good for Lisa. She was happy, she was making a good income from her job, and she enjoyed the Sydney lifestyle. She was also able to maintain a relationship with her family back home. Lisa would call her mother on a fairly regular basis, and the two often corresponded over text messages. But in January of 2010, things would begin to change. During this time, she was introduced to a man named Simon Gaetani. Simon was a 38-year-old businessman who resided in Sydney. Simon presented himself as a successful, squeaky-clean professional, but unbeknownst to Lisa, Simon had a history of violence. During his teenage years, he was involved in a number of petty crimes, and his first stint in prison would occur in 1993. Simon was caught with items that had been stolen from a woman. Officers went over to Simon's home to arrest him. However, he became violent quickly and began attacking the police. He then bit the ear of an officer, resulting in a chunk of flesh being ripped off of his ear. For this, Simon was sentenced to 2.5 years in jail. And then, in the year 2000, Simon was arrested again on drug supply charges. He was found guilty and was sentenced to 3 years periodic detention. Following this, Simon did appear to sort his life out. He and a friend began an online company selling shoes called Shoe Candy. From this site, Simon and his friend made a decent amount of money. In 2010, Simon was looking for a housemate to fill an empty room in his home, and around this time, Lisa just so happened to need a new place to live. A friend named George introduced the two, and Lisa moved into Simon's spare room. According to court documents, Simon would later claim that Lisa was George's mistress around this time. Around 2 months living together, Simon and Lisa became romantically involved, and they began a relationship. By all accounts, things started well for the couple. They got along incredibly well. However, not long after, some rather clear signs of abuse began to emerge. The relationship between the couple was complex to say the least. Although the two did get along well, they frequently fought and argued. A few months into their relationship, Simon became controlling and invasive. Lisa was employed at a hair and beauty salon in Bondi Junction from July of 2009 until May of 2010. According to Lisa's mother, in a bid to isolate Lisa and to make her more financially dependent on him, Simon encouraged her to leave her job. He also told Lisa that the people she worked with were beneath her and she needed to find a better class of people to spend time with. He repeatedly told her to leave in an overbearing manner, and in May of 2010, she quit the job. In June of 2010, Lisa began to realize that things were a bit off with Simon. She made a call to her mother, telling her that they were, quote, starting to have issues. She went on to say that Simon had told her to begin counselling right away. She began seeing a counsellor/chiropractor, and according to court documents, he treated Lisa for neck and shoulder pain and her anxiety and stress. This counsellor would later say that Lisa began struggling with her eating again, and that she was having trouble sleeping. In September of 2010, the couple decided to move into a rather lavish and luxurious apartment called The Hyde. This apartment was located right next to Hyde Park and had views of the park. They rented a unit which was on the 15th floor. Lisa was in two minds about this move, as according to Lisa's mother, she was having thoughts of moving back to Melbourne, as that's where some of her friends were living. But in the end, she decided to move into the apartment with Simon in Hyde Park, and shortly after moving in, the arguments continued and intensified. In mid-September of 2010, Lisa's mother sent her a text message asking if everything was okay. Lisa then replied with the following messages. Same as usual, walking on time bombs. Any minute, boom, explosions. I miss my friends and family so much. I have no life. I feel trapped, like I have to watch everything I say, do, and feel. I got in trouble yesterday because I said that I felt cold. Although, on numerous occasions, Lisa would also send messages saying that she was happy and content with Simon. To say that the relationship was a roller coaster would be an understatement. Simon would threaten to kick her out, or Lisa would threaten to leave, but neither of them would follow through. In December of 2010, Simon installed cameras in the apartment. It is speculated that these cameras were installed so Simon could spy on Lisa, though Simon assured her that it was for safety reasons. He installed 2 cameras inside the apartment and 1 outside. Lisa was very well aware of these cameras. As the year 2010 came to a close, Lisa's mother noted some rather strange messages from Lisa. Lisa told her that she would no longer wear any dresses, and that Simon had told her to only wear basic pants and basic clothing from now on. Lisa also explained that she no longer went to any nightclubs or bars, as Simon became agitated when she received any male attention. With Lisa being rather attractive, this happened a lot. In one message to her mother, Lisa said, "Time for me to grow up and wear big girl pants now. The relationship sure has changed me a lot. I'm much more calm than I was before, domesticated, conservative, and dainty. I have bought a bunch of flat and casual shoes, and no more cleavage, I'm afraid. Simon is terrified of summer and the beach. He has said we will have to find the burqa bathing suit to wear." Simon despised the attention that Lisa received, and he accepted that he was a jealous boyfriend. Lisa's dream was to live in Australia, and she was on the path to getting residency in Australia. Simon knew that this was her dream. On numerous occasions, when she didn't do as he wanted, he threatened that he knew people who could get her visa terminated and bring an end to her dream. This was something that worried Lisa a great deal. In December of 2010, Lisa went home for Christmas. Her mother noticed a big difference, mainly in her appearance. She was only wearing dark and plain clothing, had her hair tied back, wore no makeup, and had no part of her body on show. She was pretty much fully covered, apart from her face. Whilst Lisa was home in Toronto, she made no contact with her friends. She was fearful that Simon would accuse her of drinking if she met up with them. If Lisa didn't reply to his messages fast enough, Simon would call Lisa's mother and demand to know where she was. He would even ask Lisa's mother to confirm what she was wearing, making sure that her outfit was up to his standards. Time soon came for Lisa to head back to Australia, but before she left, her mother spoke with her. She told Lisa that she thought it would be best if she stayed in Canada, but Lisa responded that she desperately wanted to make a life for herself in Australia and that she wanted to go back and try make that dream come true, explaining that if she didn't go back as planned, Simon would contact his friends and her visa would be terminated. Lisa believed that she had to go back. Little did she know that Simon didn't actually have this power over her. He had lied. And so, on the 24th of January 2011, Lisa returned to Sydney. When she got back, she booked a session with a psychologist. Following the session, the psychologist wrote a series of notes. These notes read, "She feels like she is losing herself. He takes her keys, won't let her wear heels to the shops, and tells her what to wear. She talks back to him and he doesn't like this. He wants her to be submissive. He uses words like evil, poisonous, and snake to refer to her." During the session, Lisa asked the psychologist if all of this was her fault, and she began to doubt herself. Lisa never attended another session. Throughout their relationship, Lisa would regularly say to Simon that she had a secret, that there was something that she wanted to tell him but she couldn't, something that she was ashamed of. However, when Simon pressed her to tell him what this secret was, Lisa refused to tell him. And so in February of 2011, Simon bought some computer software and linked it up to Lisa's phone without her knowing. This software allowed him to view all of her messages and monitor her calls. With this software, Simon discovered a message on Lisa's phone which read, "Do what your heart tells you to do." This message was from a female friend. Simon became immensely paranoid and he called the friend who sent the message, telling her to never speak to Lisa again. The truth was that Lisa was indeed planning to leave Simon and get away from him once and for all. Around this time, she was constantly messaging her mother, describing how she felt alone, sad, and unwanted. Simon threatened regularly to kick her out for things like having her hair down. In one message, Simon wrote to Lisa saying, "Who do you think you are, walking around the house like you own it, coming and going without my permission? You walk around like a peacock with your hair out, too proud to ever apologize." The couple's turbulent relationship continued. The 12th of June 2011 marked Lisa's 30th birthday. Simon organised a surprise birthday for her which was attended by his family. During her celebrations, he got down on one knee and proposed to Lisa. By all accounts, Lisa was ecstatic at the proposal. She sent a happy message to her mother, but the message is incredibly depressing to read. It read, "Thank you so much for the flowers and beautiful balloons and card. I wish you were here to celebrate with me. Simon has made me a promise. If I can get my weight down to 50 kilograms with training and keep it for 2 weeks, then he will fly us both to Canada to see you. I only have 3 kilograms to go." Even after the engagement, the pair continued to viciously argue, and in June, their arguing came to a breaking point. In June, Lisa began planning to move to Melbourne. She messaged another friend who lived in Melbourne. Simon, of course, saw these messages and contacted the friend, demanding that this friend convince Lisa to stay with him. But this friend didn't want to turn their back on Lisa. However, Lisa ultimately decided to try and sort things out with Simon instead of moving back to Melbourne. With this, Simon's control escalated to the point that he no longer allowed her to go to the gym, instead only allowing a female personal trainer to come to the apartment. The reason was that Simon didn't like men looking at Lisa in the gym. When Lisa spoke with Simon, she had to maintain strict eye contact at all times. Failure to do so would result in him becoming angry, along with possible accusations of looking at other men, and she needed Simon's permission to go anywhere. Lisa had 2 personal trainers who would come at different times. At one point, Lisa confided in one of her personal trainers that Simon seemed to know everything about what she was saying to her mother in text messages, but she just couldn't figure out how he knew. She had no idea that he had secret access to her phone. On the 28th of July 2011, one of Lisa's personal trainers arrived at the apartment. They noted that she appeared to be incredibly nervous, She kept looking around to see if anyone was near her. Lisa told her personal trainer that she wanted to leave and that she was miserable. The personal trainer explained that she would help Lisa leave if she needed any assistance. Later on, Lisa corresponded with this personal trainer over text messages, and of course, Simon could read it all. With all of this information, Simon told Lisa that her personal trainer told him everything, and that the personal trainer was backstabbing her. Of course, the trainer was innocent. The two personal trainers' names were Lisa Brown and Michelle. Lisa was furious, believing that the two women had betrayed her, so she sent an angry message saying, "Please don't ever contact me ever again. I don't want to hear from you. You have ruined my life. I had everything with Simon, but you brainwashed me, and now I am out on the street with nothing. I want the money I paid you for ruining my life, as I am broke and need money." The following day, on the 29th of July, Lisa sent a message to her mother saying, "Mummy, please come and get me." The two had a phone call, and during this call, Lisa looked for a one-way ticket to Canada. Lisa's mother told her, "Grab your purse, grab your passport, and get out ASAP." During the call, Lisa said that she loved her mother and her brother Jason with all of her heart, and that if anything happened to her, to contact her personal trainers. At some point in June, Lisa made this secret recording.
All I'm saying is that I have nothing else to do in my life other than you. That's it. If I had my family here, you know what? I would spend half of my time with you and half of my time with my family. You know what I mean? I don't have anybody else. So when and I'm not trying to make you feel bad, Simon, but it hurts my feelings when you say the things to me.
All I'm saying is, if I ask for that, I'm just giving you warning so that you don't think I'm starting to fight or I'm saying anything that I never told you about before. That's all I'm saying, babe. Okay? And yes, you.
I just don't want you to spend half the time without completely without me, because you know what? Think about this. When I'm not with you, I am by myself. I don't talk. I don't speak. I'm by myself.
So cute, I love you.
But it's the truth.
I love you so much.
You know how much I've been missing my mother? Like, I want to see her so bad. I wish she was here. I would hang out with her all the time.
I know, Baba. I know. We're going to fix
it up. And then it'd be fine.
As soon as you can get your thing, we can send you, and, we can eventually bring her here. Just hang on, Baba.
Maybe if I go home for a couple of months, maybe you'll appreciate me more.
Shut up.
I'm serious. Maybe you'll want to hang out with me more. I'm serious.
Baba, we hang out all the time. Don't do that. We hang out all the time, okay?
And now we arrive to the 30th of July 2011. On this day, Lisa found out about the spying program, and she was able to change the password to the word trust, something that likely greatly infuriated Simon. The two were inside the apartment when Simon confronted Lisa, demanding that she show him her booking for the flight home. According to Simon, Lisa got up, grabbed her handbag, and ran for the door. Lisa managed to get outside of the apartment, and she desperately banged on the next door neighbor's home, but Simon was close behind. He pulled Lisa back into the apartment. This was captured on Simon's CCTV footage. As you can see, he placed his hands over her mouth to stop her from screaming, and then brought her inside. A woman who lived in the apartment next to Lisa and Simon heard the commotion. They heard the banging on their door, and a woman's voice screaming, "Please help me, God, help me." The neighbor walked towards their door as the screaming stopped dead, and then they locked their door. The neighbor didn't do anything. Now, what exactly happened inside the apartment is unclear, and Simon's versions of events are very different to the official narrative. But we will start with the official narrative. Once Simon grabbed Lisa and brought her into the apartment, he rendered her unconscious. He then picked her up and walked towards the edge of the balcony and dropped Lisa to her death. She fell 15 floors from the apartment that they shared together and plummeted to the ground. Lisa died almost instantaneously from the impact. A doctor just so happened to be driving by when he saw her body hit the ground. This doctor pulled over and found Lisa lying on her side. Her back and one leg was clearly broken. She had a flailed chest, meaning that the ribs on both sides of the chest were broken. She also had a fractured dislocation of the spine. Lisa had no pulse. Simon could then be seen on CCTV exiting the apartment and making his way down to the ground floor. Once outside, he rushed towards Lisa's body. A crowd of people gathered and the emergency services were called. Simon was taken to Surrey Hills police station shortly after. He was not charged on this day. He told the police about the cameras inside the building and told them to go and check. An officer then asked him for a statement. Simon said the two argued. She grabbed her black handbag and went to leave through the front door. He said he stopped her and dragged her back inside the apartment. Once inside, he claimed he made her a cup of tea, and whilst he was standing in the kitchen, he saw her walk towards the balcony. Simon recalled that he remembered feeling puzzled by this, wondering why she was heading towards the balcony. He then said he saw her step over the railing onto a little cliff face. Upon seeing this, Simon claimed he ran towards the railing to try and grab hold of her, but it appeared that she slipped and fell to her death. Simon then showed the officers his camera system inside the apartment. However, he failed to mention one thing. The cameras were connected to a hard drive, and Simon never disclosed this to the police at the time. The hard drive was hidden, and he never handed it to the police. Investigators were brought in, and they began combing the apartment for evidence as to exactly what happened, and to make sure that Simon's story was true. But investigators noticed something strange. Lisa's fingerprints were not found on the glass railing like should be expected if she had actually climbed over, making the police rather suspicious. Meanwhile, Simon had to return to his family home in Maryland. His sister later described how he was that evening. She said that he was crying and rocking back and forth, saying, "What were you thinking?" over and over again. Meanwhile, Lisa's body was taken away for an autopsy, which highlighted her horrific injuries. However, there were no injuries which suggested that she was beaten before falling to the ground. But inside Lisa's pocket, the police found something very odd. A torn-up piece of paper, which when put together read, "There are surveillance cameras inside and outside of the house." On the 1st of August, Simon sent a text message to Lisa's mother, saying, "Dear Joan, I am sorry for this tragic accident. I could do nothing to save her. I wanted to call you straight away, but the police wouldn't let me. I loved your daughter immensely, and as you know, we were going to get married next year. I am so sorry. I know you hate me right now, and I understand." Soon into the investigation, the police discovered that the cameras should be hooked up to a hard drive. They returned to Simon's apartment with a search warrant to retrieve it, but it was gone. The hard drive was later recovered. However, there was no footage found on the device. It is possible that the memory of the hard drive was wiped, but this isn't exactly clear. Eyewitnesses were then questioned by the police. In total, 3 people actually saw Lisa fall from the balcony, but one witness saw something truly horrifying. Josh Rathmel. Josh was the man I mentioned at the very beginning of the video. He was walking to work through Hyde Park when all of a sudden he heard a deranged screaming. He looked up at the apartment building and saw a man carrying what he believed to be a black luggage bag or a duffel bag. Josh said that this black object was longer than it was tall. He said he then saw the man unload the object and it began to fall. Josh didn't see this object hit the ground as his view was obstructed by some trees. At this time, Josh didn't realize that this object was a body, and so he continued to look at the man standing on the balcony. Josh then continued walking, but then he saw some people gathering below the apartment building. He then heard people saying, "That's a body." Josh then realized that what he had seen was a man throwing someone from the balcony. He continued walking to work, trying to process exactly what he had just seen. He knew that he had to contact the police. Josh phoned the police 3 times to try and give a statement. However, no officers got back to him. So he walked to the station himself and gave a statement in person. With this eyewitness testimony and the lack of fingerprints on the balcony, Simon was charged with the murder of Lisa on the 3rd of August 2011. He was behind bars between the 4th of August 2011 and the 20th of January 2012. However, in January, he was granted bail. Simon protested his innocence and pleaded not guilty during the court proceedings. Whilst on bail, he began a new relationship with a woman named Rachel Louise, something that caught the attention of the media. Eventually, Simon's bail would be revoked and the trial would begin in 2013. Rachel attended every day of the trial in support of Simon. In fact, she was so supportive that she gave him $85,000 of her life savings to fund his defense, and even borrowed $35,000 from friends. She was then able to get her mother and father to also give Simon thousands of dollars for legal costs. But soon enough, Simon ran out of money. Simon was unable to fund a jury trial and had to proceed with a judge-only trial. Simon claimed that Lisa was depressed and delusional and that she threw herself off the balcony. He pointed to a number of examples in the past. On a number of occasions, according to Simon and some of Simon's friends and family, Lisa had a history of doing reckless things. One time, Lisa and Simon got into an argument whilst she was in the passenger seat and Simon was driving, which resulted in Lisa trying to jump out of the moving car, which was travelling at 50 kilometers per hour. This story was backed up by Simon's friend, who was also in the car. Simon's sister also came forward. She said that one time she saw the couple driving with Lisa in the passenger seat, when all of a sudden, Lisa opened the passenger door, jumped out of the car with her bag, and yelled, "Help," and ran down the street. Simon's sister then made a call to Lisa on her mobile phone. She asked, "Are you okay?" And Lisa replied, "Yes, I'm just getting myself a hot chocolate." His sister then asked whether she was okay and whether she had hurt herself. Lisa responded by saying, "No, I just sometimes do silly things." Simon's defense argued that he was too short to throw her over the balcony. Simon is around 5'6", and the balcony railing is over 4 foot. They argued that Simon wouldn't have been physically capable of lifting Lisa and pushing her over. There was also a large plant pot and a treadmill blocking the ledge, which would have made this even harder. Both of these objects were undisturbed and had not been moved. His defense argued that Lisa went over the balcony as a gesture to frighten him, but the safety ledge on the other side of the balcony was lower down than the actual balcony floor, and as a result she slipped and fell. The prosecution argued that this was all a fabrication. They argued that Lisa would have been rendered unconscious before being thrown from the balcony, but there was no evidence to suggest how she was rendered unconscious. They also pointed to Simon's violent past and his capacity for violence. The key witness Josh also testified, highlighting that he saw a man throwing her from the balcony. Another key piece of evidence was that there was an absence of Lisa's fingerprints on the glass railing. If Lisa did indeed climb over, her fingerprints should have been on the glass panel. The judge then came to a decision and made this statement. Lisa was trying to leave the accused on the morning of her death. He stopped her with an act of serious aggression. There is no doubt in my mind that he was in a state of rage and he lost control of his temper. According to the accused, after dragging her back into the apartment, he set her down, made some remarks, and went to make her a hot drink. The proposition that he was able to bring himself under control so quickly after the struggle at the door is inherently implausible, and I reject it. I do not accept his evidence that Lisa climbed over the balcony. I do not entertain a reasonable doubt about the accuracy or reliability of the evidence by Mr. Josh Rathmell. I cannot know exactly what happened in the apartment in the minute or so following the struggle at the door, but I think it's likely that Lisa was at some point rendered unconscious. Based on my assessments of all the evidence, I am satisfied to a point of actual persuasion and beyond reasonable doubt that the accused maintained his rage, and in that state, He carried her to the balcony and unloaded her over the edge. I find the accused guilty of the murder of Lisa Cecilia Harnum.
Just minutes after screaming and collapsing upon hearing her boyfriend had been found guilty of murder, Rachel Louise emerged from court for a quiet cigarette.
Does anyone have a lighter on them?
She was surrounded by a huge media pack, but for several minutes just stood there smoking, ignoring every question about Simon Gattani and the day's events. Earlier, Gattani's loved ones arrived hopeful Simon would be acquitted. Lisa Harnum's family, who'd flown all the way from Canada, now have the verdict they so desperately wanted.
We will always mourn the loss of our beautiful Lisa Cecilia and are working towards making her legacy a powerful wake-up call to young women and to parents, siblings, and friends of these young women to be aware of the warning signs of a controlling relationship and take a proactive approach to assisting them.
In what was an unprecedented 5-hour judgment, Justice Lucy McCallum said she had no doubt the accused was controlling, dominating and at times abusive. And she added that Lisa Harnum was in a state of absolute fear and despair by 6 a.m. the morning of her death, after Gattani found out she was making plans to leave him. Justice McCallum found Simon Gattani's detailed version of what happened on the balcony that morning unconvincing, comparing his demeanour in the witness box to Lindy Chamberlain's during her infamous murder trial in 1981. He struck me as a person playing a role, telling a story. The judge did believe the evidence of the Crown's main eyewitness, Joshua Rathmell, who saw what he thought at the time was a man throwing luggage off the 15th floor balcony.
Simon Gattani was later sentenced to a minimum term of 18 years, with a maximum term of 26 years. Simon's new girlfriend Rachel protested his innocence, and she still believes to this day that he is innocent. The two would later break up, as they of course found it hard to continue a relationship while Simon was behind bars. However, it is reported that she still visits Simon in prison. Since his incarceration, Simon has tried to appeal his conviction, but he has been rejected. And following the conclusion of the case, Simon's family and some of his friends have attempted to prove his innocence. They even set up a website which is still up and running to this day. In honour of Lisa's memory, the Lisa Harnum Foundation was created by her friends and family, an organisation which helps victims of domestic abuse, a link to which will be pinned in the comments. The case of Lisa is tragic. She was so close to finally getting out of the toxic relationship that she found herself in. Her case is a grim reminder to the horrors of domestic abuse.